Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And there's actually a 30-second delay between what I'm doing here and what you're seeing there, which I'm going to wait until allow some people to log on. I'm not sure exactly how well all this works. Am I good? اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد بارك وسلم عليه. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد بارك وسلم عليه. شكرا. نحمده ونصلي على رسول النبي الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قال الله تعالى في شأن حبيبي إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا مولانا محمد طب القلوب ودوائها وعافية الأبدان وشفائها ونور الأبصار وضيائها وآله وعلى آله وأصحابه دائما أبدا صلاة وسلاما عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. We're going to try this format maybe today and tomorrow and see how well it works, and then kind of decide or try to figure out what format we need to use long term. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy. But of course, nothing good comes easy. There's always trials and tribulations, and the biggest thing is patience in everything. And as we've been talking about Nuh alayhi salam, as we said, he preached for hundreds of years with only a few followers. And this is, again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says throughout the Quran, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Glad tidings to those who are patient. But one point that I was trying to make yesterday, and when everything kind of fell apart, was that I tend to generally give an outline to begin with and then start filling in the gaps, because it's easier to remember things that way. I used to hate that in school when the teacher used to make us write outlines and then, you'd do this and that. But later I realized that it's easier for the mind to hold on to information in that manner, because you have a general overview, and then you start filling in the details. With the story of Nuh alayhi salam and with the story of all of the prophets, there are going to be constant similarities, because human nature does not change. If you look at human nature 10,000 years ago and human nature 2,000 years ago and human nature today, it's the same. The only thing that we've advanced in is how to kill each other. Before it took some intestinal fortitude to do anything. And now you can sit in one room and press a button and kill thousands of people, on the other side of the world. But as far as the nature of greed, the nature of, envy, the nature of even piety. Of course, piety, the perfection of piety came with the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But if you look throughout, you should and you will see similarities from one prophet to the next prophet. Similarities, of course, in the message, but also in the similarities in the way that people opposed them, and how they dealt with that opposition. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he sent the prophets, he always sent them with signs, and these signs are miracles, something totally unusual that happens through the authority of a prophet is a mu'jiza or a miracle. And so, and these signs were, if you looked at them objectively, were irrefutable. Anyone who looked at them with an objective approach could not deny them. We see this throughout history. And again, we see this again with the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They would always give excuses as to why they didn't accept them, but they never denied that this was the doing of the Prophet. Even like in the case of Musa alayhi salam, or in the case of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the case of any other prophet. When the Prophet would do or perform these signs, then, those who believed acknowledged that these are the signs of Allah through the authority that he has given to these messengers. Whereas those who opposed them said, this is magic, or came up with some other excuse. And the purpose of these signs, again, is for someone to understand what is going on. We cannot, if you can't see anything, and you can't touch it, and you can't feel it, and you can't hear it, you can't taste it, and you can't use any of your senses to acknowledge that something exists. And you don't know how to make any tools that can show the existence of something, then how do you know that it exists? Except through its signs. And the greatest sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. And when the other previous prophets came with signs, they came with the signs, but they themselves were also signs, or a sign of Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in the Quran, he says in various places that I did not send وَمَا كُنَّا نَكْتُمُ حَتَّى نَبَثَ رَسُولًا, that we did not punish a people until a warner or a messenger was sent. So the messenger came with the signs, and the people rejected the signs, which was a rejection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so when we see the story of Nuh alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they were defiant in their disobedience, and they rejected the signs of Allah. Not only did they reject the sign, but they ridiculed the signs of Allah. So when Nuh alayhi salam is preaching to them, they're doing all of these things, and we talked about the various things that they did. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that he saved those who believed. And there's an interesting story, about this old woman. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam praised the iman of the elderly women. This is, and we'll see this again when we talk about the old woman of Musa alayhi salam. But this old woman, she was passing by and she sees Nuh alayhi salam building the ark. She asked him, she said, "What are you doing?" So he said that I'm building this ark because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to send a punishment on these people, for not accepting him. So she says that, well, I want to be with you on this ship, on this ark. So she leaves. The next day she comes back and she says, "Are you done? Have you finished?" And he says, "No, I'm not finished yet. It's not time yet." So she says, "Fine." She leaves. She lived a distance away in a hut, and every day she'd come back. And she'd ask Nuh alayhi salam, "Are you done? Is it time?" And he said, "No, it's not time. I'm not done." And the next day the same thing, and the next day the same thing, and every day the same thing. And of course, Nuh alayhi salam, he's busy building the ark. He's at the same time busy taking care of his family. He's at the same time busy still preaching to these people who he knows will not accept the message. He has hundreds of things he's got to do, and every day this woman is coming, and she's asking him, "Are you done? Is it time?" And every day he gives her the same answer. One day when she comes, however, he's tied up with all these other things, and he answers in a rather stern way. And so, she listens to him and she leaves. And yet Nuh alayhi salam himself felt, after she leaves, he felt that he should not have spoken to her in this manner. It is her iman that keeps bringing her back. She knows that what Nuh alayhi salam has said will come true, because he is the prophet of Allah, he is a messenger of Allah, and that he cannot be wrong. And so she's eager to be with him. So he turns to Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to him that your kafara, or your emancipation for speaking sternly to her, is that you go to her and you tell her that she does not need to come back, but you will come and get her when it's time. And so he goes. She lives in this hut, good distance away. He walks all the way there, small hut. He knocks on the door, he enters, and he tells her, he says, look, he apologizes for being stern with her. He says, you don't need to keep coming. Don't bother yourself with coming. When it's time, I will come and get you. And she says to him, remember this. She says, don't forget me. When it's time, don't forget me, come and get me. And he says, I will come and get you. When the sign for the flood came, when the water started flowing out of the oven in the house of Nuh alayhi salam, and he knew that it was time, and then suddenly the rain started coming, and all of this is happening all at once. He rushes, he starts gathering all the animals that he's ordered to gather together. He starts gathering all of the believers together to come and bring them into the ship. And then at the same time, his son, as we spoke about last time, he refuses to come on the ship. And you can imagine his condition when he's going through all of this. They barely get on the ship in enough time for the ship starts to float. And in all of this process, he forgets the old woman. The rain started and the ship started to float on the first of Rajab. According to Ibn Abbas, is the first of Rajab. For 40 days and 40 nights, the rains continued. And not only is it raining, but you have water coming out of the earth, gushing out of the earth, out of every crack and crevice of the earth. You have all of this water gushing forth until everything is covered. Even the mountains are covered, and there's nothing left. Rajab passes, Shaban comes, Ramadan comes, Shawwal comes, Zil-Hajj, Zil-Qa'dah, Zil-Hajj, and then Muharram. After the 6 months pass, Ibn Abbas, he says that the ark came around the Kaaba, the area of Mecca, and then it continued from there until it reached its point. And on the 10th of Muharram, the ship or the ark landed on the Mount Judi. So 6 months and 10 days. And the 10th of Muharram is significant for many reasons. And this is one of those reasons. That the nur of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that was on this ship, that is the essence of saving all of those people. And it arrived and it landed on this mountain safely with the 80 people that are on board and all of the animals that are on board. And this is when, as we mentioned last time, Nuh alayhi salam, he says, Ya Allah, oh my son. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that he is not your son. because his actions are not righteous. So, but he also at this point, he remembers the old woman that he had forgotten. You know? And when he realizes he had forgotten her after asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness for asking for his son, he remembers the old woman and he goes rushing to where her hut was, expecting that it's washed away. He arrives there, and he sees that everything around this small hut has been destroyed, but the hut is still standing. So now he goes in and he sees the old woman making salat. Salat is nothing new. However, the way we make it, according to the sunnah of Rasulullah ﷺ, is somewhat different than the way they used to make it. They still made sujood and ruku, and they made these other positions. Some of what they said was different, but it was similar. And you see that even with all the changes in their books, even in the New Testament, when they talk about Isa alayhi salam, Jesus, peace be upon him, in the Garden of Gethsemane, what do they say? That he's worshiping God with his forehead on the ground. What's he doing? He's making sajda. And so he sees this woman, she's making salat, and as he enters, she finishes her salat. And she looks at Nuh alayhi salam and she says, is it time? Is it time? Is the flood coming? And Nuh alayhi salam, he says, it's already come and gone. She had started her salat. She used to, when Nuh alayhi salam said, you don't need to come, because before that, all her worship would be coming and going. And now he said, you don't need to come. And so now she's spending all her time in salat. She started her salat when the rain started. And now when Nuh alayhi salam re-enters, now she finishes one salat. And she didn't even realize anything that's going on. And if we want to attempt to understand this, we also look at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Mi'raj of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He left Makkah and goes to Jerusalem and then goes throughout the seven heavens and then to La Makkah and then back, all in a small part of the night. If you look at it from a physical standpoint, this was just a few seconds. This whole journey and everything that happens in between this whole journey. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, what about salat? He said, as-salatul mi'rajul mu'minin. That salat is the mi'raj of the mu'min, of the believer. It is the ascension of the believer. It's like they say here, time flies when you're having fun. When you're doing something that you enjoy, hours seem like minutes. And when you're doing something that is painful to you, whether physically or emotionally painful to you, then, a few seconds feel like hours. And so this old woman was so engrossed in her beloved, making salat and worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that she didn't realize anything else. The interesting thing here is when you look at the punishment of Allah, the punishment of Allah never came until everything was made clear to the people. And even after everything being made clear to the people, they still rejected it. So after clear proof came and the people rejected faith, then the punishment came. But the punishment did not come until the messenger left. If you look throughout the Quran, and including the story of Nuh alayhi salam, Lut alayhi salam, and the other prophets and all of the other prophets, Allah's punishment did not come until the messenger left, until the prophet that was sent to them with the warning left them. And the prophet never left until the punishment started to come, and was right on top of them. The exception of this, of course, is Yunus alayhi salam, and we'll talk about him when we get to that point. But when the punishment would start to come, the Prophet would leave, then the punishment would descend completely. So long as the prophets were with them, the punishment did not come. And this is why the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not come upon this ummah like it came upon the previous ummahs. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has not left us. It's a different issue that we left him. But he has not left us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Ahzab, النَّبِيُّ أَوْلَى بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنفُسِهِمْ, that this Nabi, this Prophet, is closer to the believers than their own selves. If I look at this from a medical standpoint, how close am I to myself? You cut off my arms, you cut off my legs, I'm still alive. You take my heart out and put a plastic pump in there, and I'm still alive. You take my kidneys out and put me on dialysis, and I'm still alive. You take out most of the lungs, and I'm still alive. Most of the intestines, still alive. Most of this and most of that, the eyes, the nose, the ears, everything goes. Most of the brain, you take it out, and I'm still alive. And yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that he is this about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is closer to the believers than their own selves, than their own lives. And the only reason that the punishment does not come upon this ummah is because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has never left us. If we choose to ignore him, that's our own problem. But he has not forgotten us, irrespective of whether we have forgotten him. Same thing in the situation of Nuh alayhi salam. The punishment didn't come until Nuh alayhi salam was separated from the people. The final punishment, the actual punishment, did not come. This woman, this old woman, whose iman was solid, her heart never left Nuh alayhi salam. Every day she's going until finally he says, okay, look, don't come, I'll come to you. But her heart never left him. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kept her with him. He was on the ark and she was in her hut safe. And he preached on afterwards. Again, when we look at the arguments of the people, and as I said, and actually I'm going to kind of join this with the other prophets too. The intention is next to start talking about Hud alayhi salam, and that will simply be basically kind of skim over. But if you start reading in the Quran the arguments that the people brought against him, the arguments that they brought against Salih alayhi salam, against Ibrahim alayhi salam, against all of the prophets, the arguments have never changed. The arguments have never changed even today. They're the same arguments. If we don't know how to respond to the arguments, that's our own fault. But human nature does not change. One of the things, they would say, you're not better than us. And Nuh alayhi salam, he would say that I don't say that I'm better than you. Even though in reality he was better than them all. But he didn't throw this in their face. He said, I don't say that. Doesn't mean he's not, he is. Up to this point, are there any questions? Of course, like I said, there's a 30-second delay here. So I'm asking this and you'll hear that 30 seconds later. But if you look at the arguments, and the response is important to understand throughout this, about when you read these arguments. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in Surah Baqarah, in Surah 2, verse number 269, where he talks about hikmah, that he gives hikmah or wisdom to whom he wills, and that's how it's translated, is wisdom. But he also says that whoever has attained wisdom, to whoever he has given wisdom, for him is khayran kathira, good in abundance. Khayran kathira. And what does he say about the prophets? He says about the prophets that they are given the book and the wisdom, which means they are given khayran kathira. And for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says what? يُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ, that he is the teacher of the book and the wisdom. You can't be the teacher of something if you don't know it or you don't have it. If you say, oh, he's a math teacher, but he doesn't know math, then what's he teaching? The person who knows math is the one who can teach math. If you say, so when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that he is the teacher for Rasulullah, he is the teacher of the book and the wisdom, then that means he knows this from before. And he says about all the other prophets that I have given you the book and wisdom. Then they have been given khayran kathir, good in abundance. This is an important point to understand. So it makes it easier for when we will start talking about some of the arguments and some of the responses that the prophets gave. Where they say, one like Nuh al-Islam, he says, I don't say I'm better than you. He also says that I don't say that I'm, if I had the knowledge of the unseen, I would be given good in abundance. Well, he is given good in abundance. So what does that mean? So we need to be able to understand these things to be able to deal with arguments of certain people today. But I still don't see any questions, and so it's been more than 30 seconds. But I'm going to start this because there's not enough time to really start dealing with this today. I'm going to do this. I intended on talking about this today, but I thought that story of the old woman of Nuh al-Islam was very important to know as well, because we see the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how he protects those who are with his prophets. And the only time that the punishment comes is when the denial is extreme. And so, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and guide us and allow us to understand. And inshallah, tomorrow we will continue with this and possibly get into the story of a little bit of, or touch upon the story of Hud alayhi salam and the people of Ad, and then more details into the people of Thamud, inshallah. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا مولانا محمد وبارك وسلم عليه. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذريتنا ربنا تقبل دعاء ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Ya Allah, guide us through the straight path and make it easy for us to do those things which please you and stay away from those things which displease you. And join our hearts with your beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all those whom you love. And protect us physically, but more importantly, spiritually, in this era of the fitna of Dajjal. And guide us and protect us and our families and our friends and all of those who are joined with your Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa sallallahu ta'ala ala khayr khalqihi Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin.